Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Nic Cage Fight podcast, where we take a Nic Cage movie and sensually peel off its clothes before critically appraising its dangly bits. We do this because here at the Nic Cage Fight podcast, we stay keeping it sexy. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and I'm joined as always by Rich and Ryan. How are we today?
I've seen
pretty
things
different.
I can't unsee.
Yeah, I feel different after watching this film and after exposing you to the lost footage that I'm not going to get into yet.
Oh, we'll get to it.
Because we watched two different versions.
We did, because this film went through an interesting release pattern. We're here today to talk about the film Zandalee, 1991, R-rated, at least the cut I literally paid money for, clocking in at an hour and 40 minutes. It's an erotic thriller that was something else. It was something else, even the cut version. And we had to scramble to educate me on the pure uncircumcised version directly before recording. And yeah, that changes things a little bit, but not too much. Certainly,
No, it changes things a lot.
It does. It does. An absolutely unhinged film. Relatively interesting. Let's just dive into housekeeping. Let's go through the basic bookkeeping here, and then we can dive into what we all had to sit through multiple times for science. So starting off with the director, this was directed by Sam Pillsbury, who also directed a number of things, including Starlight Hotel, Knight Rider 2010, which was a made-for-TV film that came out in 1994, Free Willy 3, The Rescue, and Crooked Earth. I'm really not familiar with this guy's career. I think I saw Free Willy 3. That was right in the pocket for the Free Willy movies that I was watching as a kid. I think I might have seen that one.
I think that's the only thing off of his filmography other than this that I've seen.
Yeah, right?
I have not seen Free Willy 3.
Yeah, the Free
the
Willy
one with
movies,
the whale.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. That makes sense, actually.
The one that was one that they got from captivity to film for because his dorsal fin had collapsed, which is really only a thing that happens to captive orcas. But they made it like a defining trait in the Free Willy movies. The writer is a Marie Kornhauser. Again, not sure, like usual, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who has written just a couple of films, none of which I've seen. A film called Treem or Trem, not entirely sure.
That's an HBO show, Treme.
It's an HBO show?
Correct, yes. I think John Goodman's on that, actually.
Oh, I missed that entirely.
I watched the first couple of episodes. Like it seemed like it was trying to be like a prestige drama and never quite got there.
Is it recent or
2010?
Okay, recent enough.
All right, I'm mistaken. I'm not seeing John Goodman, but I do remember there was some hype about that when it first came out.
Okay.
Yeah, there was. It came out on like the fucking True Blood cycle.
Well, it's like, because it's a David Simon production. It's the Wire guy doing a New Orleans show instead of a Baltimore show.
Gotcha.
Also, yeah, but
there
wasn't enough Avon Barksdale.
I'm going to catch some flack because that is one of the several times now that True Blood has come up on this podcast, and my fiance insists that I paid more attention to that show than I did. I did not. I absorbed some through osmosis, but not much.
Hey Ryan, John Goodman was on Treme season 1.
He? Okay, he's not showing up on the top cast, but Wendell Pierce is on there, so I might actually have to go and watch that shit.
All right, that's another thing we have to add to the watch
list. The bunk.
The bunk, indeed. Yes.
But they also wrote Housebound and FTW. Haven't seen either of those.
No idea what either one of those are.
I'm not sure, but I know somebody on the cast list was in FTW. But we're moving on to cast now, so that's perfect. Of course, starting as always, Nic Cage as Johnny Collins. You know Nic Cage if you're listening to this podcast. I don't know why you would listen to it otherwise if you weren't aware of who Nic Cage is. But next up, we have Erica Anderson playing the titular character Zandalee Martin, who was in Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, which I actually have seen.
And kind of rules. It's one of the better sequels.
I agree. I'm a big horror movie fan. So like the weird late sequels to all of the classic slashers. I have seen them all and enjoyed almost all of them. But she was also in 3 episodes of Twin Peaks. Ryan, I'm assuming you recognize her from that.
Yeah, she's a character on the fake soap opera within Twin Peaks that shows up on the TV every time you pan over a TV. She plays the twins Emerald and Jade.
Perfect. As soon as I saw Twin Peaks, I was like, I don't have to dig any deeper.
No, absolutely
I
not.
am a David Lynch mark.
And she was also in October 22nd, which I wasn't familiar with this at all. I did take a little peek at the plot synopsis. It sounded like Crash before Crash was made. It was one of those like converging storyline films.
Oh, I thought you meant the car fucking Crash, not the shitty Crash.
No, not good Crash. The bad Oscar bait Crash.
Yeah, no, that's the worst Oscar nominated film of all time in my approximation.
Yeah. I will say this in defense of Crash. I do like the trend that it started because we got some weird movies that tried to do that thing, like with a bunch of colliding storylines. My favorite one, I can't remember if it was called Connected or Disconnected, but it had Jason Bateman in it, and it was like a bunch of people where the internet basically ruined their lives.
Okay, so I actually have to take umbrage with that statement because Crash came out 6 years after Magnolia, the true start of that genre of the converging story bullshit.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. I give it the nod because of what it tried to do, which was make that, Oscar bait. So
and let's not forget the best movie in that genre, which is Crazy Stupid Love. Fight me.
Never seen it. Don't plan on it.
No, watch it. Listen, I had the same thing. I had the same thoughts. Like, this movie's gonna fucking suck. And then I watched it and it rules.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm fairly certain this is one of the movies that I haven't seen either, that a number of people are like, you have to watch this movie.
This movie
I
rules.
have refused thus far. Not even for a reason. It's one of those things. All right. So I feel like this might resonate with people. Do you ever have people who you ever have a situation where multiple people pitch you on a show or a movie that you just have to watch, and like the basic synopsis sounds like it's right up your alley, and for whatever reason you don't, it's not even like you're actively refusing, you're like passively refusing to. I find myself in that situation constantly.
I was about to say almost constantly.
Succession is one. People are like, you're gonna dig this, like watch it. And I'm like, yeah, I will. It sounds like I would enjoy it. And I've never done it. And I don't know. There's a number of ones like that. And that movie is on that constantly expanding list.
I've run into that a lot too. I think like one of my favorite weird little prestige shows, Bored to Death, is one that people were trying to sell me on for fucking years before I actually watched it. And then I did, and I loved it.
It's real good.
It's always one of those where, like, when you get around to it, you'll love it. But there's something about it that you're just like, you keep putting it off to rewatch The Sopranos for the 400th time. Next up, we have Judge Reinhold playing Terry Martin. People might recognize Judge from such movies as Beverly Hills Cop, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, another Nic Cage joint. And he was also in, I believe, the first 2 Santa Claus movies.
Oh, no, I don't really watch Christmas shit, but he's also on the Clerks cartoon as the Honorable Judge Reinhold. And he's also on Arrested Development as another judge, the Honorable Judge Reinhold.
Fantastic.
I knew that there was a Judge Reinhold. For some reason, I thought it was 30 Rock.
It's definitely Arrested Development. The mock trial they run is run by him, and he's got William Hung, the dude from American Idol.
Because I could see it in my head of like Alec Baldwin's character being like, we couldn't get a real judge, so we paid Judge Reinhold because we could then say his name is Judge Reinhold.
I bet that might be true also.
Yeah, it's very possible it was a joke on 30 Rock. When I was watching this and running down the cast, my fiance was like, his name is Judge Reinhold? And I was like, yeah. He was like, what if he became a judge? I was like, then he would just be Judge Reinhold. That's
nothing would
technically
change.
Judge Reinhold, but they would address him as Judge Reinhold.
The Clerks cartoon episode that involves him does have Randall saying, "Honorable Judge Reinhold, I've seen all of your movies, including Zandalee."
Well, there you go. There's a call out. Next up, we have Joe Pantoliano. Is that how you pronounce his name?
You
Pantoliano.
pronounce his name Joey Pants.
We affectionately refer to him as Joey Pants, but I've never tried to say his whole last name out loud. Playing Jerry, people will recognize this actor from Memento, The Matrix, Bad Boys, The Sopranos. Illustrious career, really, and also kills it in this role. Steve Buscemi also appears as credited as OPP Man, who also appeared in The Sopranos, Fargo, Boardwalk Empire, Reservoir Dogs, Death of Stalin. Every time I have a chance to shout out Death of Stalin, I do, because that movie is hilarious and
That movie's so good.
historic. So
Switch places with me. We can make it seem like it's part of the ceremony. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, no, I tried to sell my former history teacher father on that movie, and he watched it. He called me afterwards. He was like, that was dog shit.
Apparently, it's very historically accurate.
He hated it. I was like, you didn't find it funny at all? He was like, no, this is serious.
Communist propaganda.
Moving along, we have Marissa Tomei as Remy. Marissa Tomei, obviously recognizable from My Cousin Vinny, The Wrestler, The Big Short, and she's Aunt May in the new Spider-Man movies.
Well, I guess was Aunt May. Spoiler alert.
God, spoiler. Well, if you're listening to a movies podcast, you got to expect some spoilers. Also, warning while we're here, spoilers incoming for the movie Zandalee, if you haven't gotten around to watching that yet.
I was meaning to.
Well, now you don't have to, because we're going to break it down scene by scene.
Yeah.
Pube by pube. Hog by hog.
This is a better way to
this movie has a lot of pubes.
This is a better way to consume it, in my opinion. Which is honestly, that's the public service part of this podcast, in my opinion, is you can get the entire flavor of the movie and not actually have to sit and watch it. And you can safely consume it on your way to work, as opposed to just popping up Netflix or something on your dashboard. Don't do that. That's dangerous.
You think this movie is on Netflix?
No, I know it's not on Netflix. I paid American dollars for this film, and they cut out a weird scene involving olive oil and cocaine. We'll get to that.
That's a hook.
Last up on my housekeeping before everybody yells at me for whoever I left off is Aaron Neville as Jack. And Aaron Neville is mainly a soundtrack dude, and the soundtrack credits
mainly a general musician. It's one of the Neville brothers,
of course. But I'm just saying, as far as the movie credits are concerned, the CV is concerned, the soundtrack is the bread and butter here, including. I'm going to throw The Bodyguard in there, because when you talk about movie soundtracks, The Bodyguard is usually up at the top of the list, somewhere near the top of the list. But did the soundtrack for The Bodyguard, Phenomenon, Alive. But also, this was the actor I was mentioning that also starred in FTW, which was written by the same writer of this film.
I have to try to look this up.
Now, I was expecting, like I usually do, when there is an older actor or actress that I've left off housekeeping.
I expect do have to put my
Tata.
Vivica Lindfors is the one I was thinking of. I think that's the mother.
That's Tata. Absolutely.
Right, yeah, she plays Aunt Bedelia in that one part of Creepshow where the guy's all like, "Where's my cake, Bedelia?"
Yeah, she was also in Stargate. Interesting. I knew. I honestly,
she's been in a million movies.
I know.
Yeah, her career goes back to the 40s.
I know. At this, I'm not gonna lie. At this point, who I keep on and off the housekeeping list is more carefully curated to give Ryan a chance to yell at me now.
I mean, if somebody's in like 15 minutes of a horror movie, I'm gonna mention that shit.
I do. So yeah, so when I left the actress who plays Tata off the list, I was like, Ryan's gonna yell at me for this, and that'll be good. That'll be fun. Anybody else you guys want to yell at me about before I move on? Strong feelings about Ian Abercrombie?
Don't know that man.
Okay. All right. Just checking, just double checking. On that.
Shit, I do gotta mention Ian Abercrombie. I didn't realize he's the old wise man from fucking Army of Darkness. God damn it.
Shit. And Adam Family Values.
Wait, who's in Adam Family Values?
The driver. Also, He voiced Palpatine in Star Wars The Clone Wars animated series. Now I feel bad for leaving him out.
He was in the Will Smith classic Wild Wild West.
All right, son of a bitch. Ian Abercrombie plays Louis Medina in this
Hang
film.
on. He was in Jack Frost 2 Revenge of the Mutant Killer Snowman.
Or that movie whips ass. That's the one where it's like the fucking snowman's in the Caribbean now, right?
I believe so. I don't remember. I'm now checking.
All right,
yes,
I'm sorry.
Yes, who is resurrected and travels to a tropical cabana to kill the man responsible for his death.
He's also in a single episode of Twin Peaks that I don't remember. So it's the one time I haven't remembered a Twin Peak Illumini.
I'm sorry. They made a sequel to the horror movie with the snowman where Shannon Elizabeth was the most famous person in it, but she got famous after that movie came out, I think.
Yes, I watched that this month. It's still fun.
I mean, I watched the original. The shower kill scene with Shannon Elizabeth is famous as far as slasher scenes go. That's pretty solid. I was not aware of the sequel. Now I have to go and watch the sequel for my horror movie Christmas watch list. Great. Also, I realized today somebody shared a clip. There was a Christmas horror movie with James Caan and the wrestler Goldberg called, I think, Santa Slays, that I have not seen.
It's bad. Chris Kattan is also there for some reason. Chris Kattan is
in it. I have to watch. I've never seen it before.
Wait. Which movie is this?
Santa Slays with Goldberg.
Okay. The first scene makes no sense. They're an incestuous family, and then Goldberg just comes and fucking jackhammers all of them.
He kicks a Pomeranian into a ceiling fan.
Yes, he does.
Spits fire booze at one of the women, stabs James Caan through the hands. I have to watch. I'm sorry. I haven't seen it before. I have to watch it.
I don't blame you. It's worth a single watch. Just one.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are we ready to dive into the plot of this deeply disturbingly erotic thriller?
Let's get weird with it.
As ready as I'm going to be, considering the amount of tits we're about to talk about.
Oh yeah, all right, yeah. Let's jump into it. So we open with a jaunty trumpet tune as the camera pans down a cityscape onto a street, and then pans on up to an apartment where Zandalee and Terry. All right, it's spelled Thierry. I think.
It might be Terry with an accent. I don't know.
It is. It's fucking Terry with an accent.
It's fucking French. They don't pronounce half of the letters in their words.
So they're beginning their day. Terry is shaving in the bathroom, and Zandalee decides to get up and dance around the apartment naked. I clocked it. This is full frontal female nudity. Not 2 minutes into the film. Which is probably one of the reasons why they had difficulty with the rating system. But I do have to say, right off the jump, Judge Reinhold has a great mustache in this film.
There's a lot of great facial hair in this
There
film.
is phenomenal facial hair in this film in general. I'm just saying the stash works for him. He, tightens it up, keeps his chin nice and bare in the very opening scenes. And it seems like he's practicing some sort of business speech as he's shaving, while Zandalee is just sort of cavorting nude in the background. And he finishes up and he comes out and they dance together and sort of recite poetry back and forth at each other. This gets clarified mostly through context. It's clarified relatively well. It's one of those show not tell situations where Terry used to be like a poet, and then he got sucked into business, his father's business, when his dad died. But I'm assuming they're quoting his poetry back and forth. I'm not sure if it's something more famous. I didn't really check into it too much. But Terry then dons a fez and heads out the door. And then Zandalee goes for a run. This is the only real recurring theme in the film, is if it's morning, Zan's running. That's what she do. And in the opening scene, it's relatively interesting. I think it's an important establishing element for the character. She sees like a train coming down the tracks and like races it and dashes across the tracks right before the the train passes by. A little bit of dangerous behavior. But then, of course, we get a lovely shot of young Steve Buscemi, who catcalls Zandalee a bit as he's collecting trash. And based on the jumpsuit he's wearing, it's some sort of prison work release program.
I was going to say, they just like let their prisoners out to collect the trash. Is the union down there that strong?
I mean, I don't know. It's definitely a prison work release program of some sort. I'm not sure how prevalent that is in the modern day or what it was in the 90s, but that's definitely what's going on here.
Like was the union like, fuck it, we're not working, and everybody else was too afraid to cross the picket line, so then they had to go get prisoners. That's my headcanon.
Yeah, I don't know, but it also doesn't make a whole lot of sense in later scenes involving Steve Buscemi.
Yeah,
but
it seems like that might just be a shirt he bought at a fucking like thrift shop or something based on the rest of the movie.
No, I honestly I just think it's bad continuity because the other dude on the truck is wearing the same getup, the same like prisoner work program jumpsuit.
Right. And he just can't stop committing crimes this entire movie.
Yeah.
If he is on camera, he is committing a crime almost in like a way where the police at this point are just like, God damn it, Steve, just put it down and get back to jail.
It is kind of charming, especially when he's just running with the fucking TV later in the movie.
It's the best running bit in the film, and also the only real comedic levity that we get throughout the course of this. But at this point, we cut to Terry, who is at a party where everybody is wearing a fez. I think here is a good point to talk about this. I don't know the cultural significance of the fez or what organization would be wearing this in the 90s in New Orleans. Do either of you know by any chance?
It's the Shriners. I don't know what they do. I just know that Shriners wear the fucking fez hats.
Is that like the Masons? Is like some secret society thing?
I can find out. I'm not 100% sure, but give me a second.
Well, while you do that, I'll throw the only anecdotal knowledge I have is Morocco Mole always wore a fez in the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, or
also Grandpa Simpson, I think, would wear a fez sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. But they also had
Grandpa Simpson was a Shriner. That's specifically what was going on there. It is apparently the Shriners International, formerly known as the Ancient Arabic Order of Nobles and Mystic Shrine, is an American Masonic society started in 1870. So yeah, they're like the Masons.
Oh, so I know we have a Masonic temple or their version of a VFW like relatively close to us. Are the Shriners still a thing? I'm curious.
I guess.
The older I get, the more I want to join a weird secret society that just has stupid handshakes and
they're still
20% off at Chipotle or something like that.
Okay. Oh God, I have no interest.
You get old, you need a hobby, right? So if it's still like a bunch of old dudes that have essentially the analog version of a LinkedIn network, I'm down. If they get together and get drunk once a week, that seems like a good time.
I mean, look, I'll just wait for the next hateful thing to come out of Kanye West's mouth, and whoever it's against, that's who I'm going to join up with. Like, if he starts spouting off about like the Freemasons, I'm going to become a Freemason.
Nah, man. Freemasons got some weird shit going on that you might not want to associate with.
Like what?
Like fucking being indirectly related with the fucking Jack the Ripper killings. Okay, that's just the theory that a lot of people have, but I do actually think it has.
That's just the From Hell comic book.
Yeah. No, I'm a fan of that comic book. I don't. Do the Masons really have like a connection with that? Seems tenuous because nobody's ever solved that anyway. Have they done anything else? Are they like weirdly racist or something?
Oh, they're definitely racist. I think you have to be specific. You have to be white, and you have to be a specific religion to get in.
Oh, what religion?
Protestant.
Probably, yeah, some sort of Protestant. Ain't no Catholics allowed.
All right. Well, okay. So Shriners.
There's only two types of Catholics: Irish and Italian. So we don't want neither one of that.
All right. So back to the story. Terry is at a Shriners birthday party or bachelor party. I'm not sure. There's strippers there for sure, but into the establishment walks our first shot of Nic Cage in this film, and it's a great fucking intro. He walks in, silhouetted. He's got the long hair. He does like a headbanger hair swirl as soon as he walks in the door. For an audience of just us watching the film, because I think it's out of sight of everybody else that's actually at the party, and enters the club. Great facial hair. We'll do the hair breakdown at some point, but essentially, Johnny meets up with Terry. They actually know each other from their childhood, but immediately after they greet each other, Nic Cage as Johnny starts spraying whipped cream on one of the strippers' breasts. And we cut to later that evening. Terry and Johnny are racing up the stairs to Terry's apartment. And as they enter, Terry tells Johnny to hide as the old woman that lives with Terry and Zandalee, Tata, comes out, and Terry is trying to surprise her by trying to get her to guess who he ran into from his past. It's Johnny.
Just a quick question for the two of you, though. Did either one of you get like weird sexual tension vibes from this scene? Because I know I did.
Between Judge Reinhold? Oh, between Judge Reinhold and Johnny.
And yes, between Terry and Johnny.
Yeah, a little bit.
The guy thought that's where this scene was going.
I'm sorry. Are we getting into this now? Because I think this is central to the larger plot in general, and actually does a lot to explain Terry's actions throughout the entire course of it.
Nah, we can get into it.
Hold off on that.
I thought that this was like the most sexually frustrated scene. Not sexually frustrated, like sexually charged scene.
There is,
between
in my opinion, there is a lot of undercurrent of that sort of flavor running through a majority of this movie. Also, I'm glad you clarified, because I thought you were talking about sexual tension between Terry and Tata, and I'm pretty sure Tata is Terry's like grandmother.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So
I was not saying that,
because that I didn't pick up here. But while Terry is playing the guessing game with Tata, Johnny goes into the kitchen and runs into Zandalee for the first time. And from right off the bat, and for a little bit further into the runtime, Zandalee does not seem super psyched about Johnny and his whole vibe. And it starts right here. He lights a cigarette and gives a sort of strange, like Johnny's an odd character. He gives sort of a strange introduction. But the general subtext here is that Zandalee finds him rude or abrasive, or at the very least weird. Also, we're gonna talk about this throughout the course of this breakdown, but every single one of the actors and actresses in this film does a very good job, I think, from start to finish. I have some bones to pick with the overall storyline and the writing, but the acting, I really don't have any complaints about. It is very apparent. Body language, facial expressions, all really on point, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys have a different takeaway on this, but
no, it's very good.
I found everyone to be kind of earthy and naturalistic, which is what it seemed like they were going for. It felt like a Tennessee Williams play, just a little bit longer. Kind of like a Streetcar Named Desire is the hitching point that I found for this movie in terms of comparisons.
I mean, that's not bad company to keep as far as comparisons are concerned. Anyway, they all sit down on couches in the living room area and sort of talk, and Johnny talks about being an artist and what it means. I do want to point out we get a Donald Trump reference at this point in the film, when Johnny's talking about, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're Donald Trump, if you're this, that, or the other. But he's the speech is mildly unhinged, but we're not going to dive too much into it because there are way more unhinged scenes in this film. I don't think it's quite, I would say with certainty, it's not on par with the unhinged opening speech from Nic Cage and Moonstruck, but I mean, it has those general vibes. In my opinion,
it's not the top tier. It's not Moonstruck. It's not
no,
the
it's not
opening
I lost
scene of
my
Moonstruck.
fucking hand, but
It's not anything in Bad Lieutenant.
Yeah, correct.
If only there was a list that we had access to, and that our listeners had access to, that was up on a website where you could give us money to get access to things. Josh, does that exist?
It does exist, but I'm finding myself unable to remember where to find it. Do you know where to find
So
it?
we can turn our voices into capital. This sounds like patreon.com/Nic Cage fight.
Oh, that's right. Money can be exchanged for goods and services.
And there's goods and services.
But I wanted a
Pay for
peanut.
Oh, and before we go to the ad break, just quick reminder to our listeners, these are randomly placed ads. We don't have any particular say in what gets advertised. So, I'm just going to pick a couple topics out of the air. You shouldn't apply for a job with ICE or Border Patrol. And if you're going to take a vacation, I wouldn't suggest visiting the Amish.
But I will say I've taken a vacation to Lancaster. Just don't go to the Amish parts. Lancaster itself is actually a pretty cool little town.
No, straight up, I will 100% endorse that. The primary vacation spot for my fiance and I, when we want to get away for a cheap vacation, is usually rural Pennsylvania, and it's a lovely place in general. Their motorcyclists don't wear helmets, and no matter how quickly you're approaching an intersection, that person at that stop sign will pull out. But otherwise, lovely town, lovely people, no matter what town you're talking about. I'm just not a big fan of the Amish.
Also, I did approve all of the ads. So do go and join ICE. No, actually don't. Anyway, here's ads. Don't join ICE. Okay, I hope you didn't join ICE, boys and girls.
Yeah, everybody who signed up, stop listening. No, all right.
And listen, you they thems, don't you join ICE either.
Jumping right back into the plot, because I'm still working on my segues and transitions. We do get some backstory about Johnny at this point when they're having this conversation, which I'm not gonna lie is a pretty badass backstory. He apparently faked going to art school. He just took money from his parents, and I think like tuition loans and shit like that, and just went to classes but literally never paid the school, and mostly just painted and did drugs and got drunk, which is some boss shit.
That is very cool to do.
It is. That's fucking awesome. Steal your education if you can, please. Higher education is a scam. But the conversation ends with Johnny saying he wants to paint Terry's portrait. He throws this out there before he leaves. And we cut to the next morning. And since it's morning, if you don't know what's going to be happening, you'll catch on soon enough. Zan goes running, and we get a scene of her running. Also, by the way, I just want to throw this out there. They have her running kind of weird. I feel like they were directing her to run theatrically, which is really like heels up the whole time. I don't know if you've noticed that, but
very, very Steven Seagal like.
It's strange, and there's a specific point and comment in my life that has caused me to more closely examine how people run or sort of, get a good hustle on in a movie. And that was when I was talking to a friend years ago about the movie Taken. I'm assuming both of you have seen the movie Taken.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So the teenage daughter in that film, I was talking about it with somebody, and they pointed out that the teenage daughter runs like a toddler in that movie. And after I got home from that conversation, I put it on, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. It's absurd. So I pay a weird amount of attention to this, because it can get really, really strange. In this film, it just seems a little bit forced. It's honestly the most forced acting element I would call out in the movie, is that she runs weird specifically for the camera shots.
I agree. It kind of reminds me of that famous Macintosh commercial that Ridley Scott directed, the one where you've got the woman in like Olympic regalia with the hammer that's running towards the big screen.
Oh, it was 1984.
Yeah, specifically. Yeah. She kind of runs like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, as far as picking out like, immersion breaking shit, this is relatively low on the totem pole, but I did notice it, so I'm going to call it out. But we also, right after the running scene, we get the first look at Zandalee's dress shop. She has some sort of tailor shop, And this is also the first time we get to see Joey Pants in the film.
I think this is also the first part that's lifted directly from Therese Raki, the Emile Zola novel, that this is sort of borrows from liberally.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because this scene more or less happens in that book. And in the other adaptation I've seen of this, which is a Korean vampire film, oddly enough, that kind of does the exact same story as Zandalee, I was surprised to find out as I was watching it.
I'm kind of interested in that.
It's called Thirst. It's a Bong Joon-ho joint.
Oh, shit. Yo, I'm down with that for sure. But we get Joey Pants playing Jerry, who comes into Zandalee's dress shop and is trying on a dress for some sort of ball party, whatever. And Jerry starts giving Zandalee the business about her seeming unhappy and unfulfilled, but mostly in a sexual way, right? That's at least the context I took from that conversation. But in my defense, in case I'm wrong, there's a lot of sexual overtones in the film. So maybe that was a misread on my part, but that seemed to be what they were talking about. Simultaneously, while this is occurring, back at the apartment, Johnny is painting Terry's portrait, and he's in the process of this when Zandalee arrives home from working at the shop. Not gonna lie, even from the first look at the portrait, it's a good painting. It's interesting, sort of a Picasso's blue period type thing. It's a little bit bizarre and interpretive, but it's not bad.
There's a bit of abstraction of form to it, which is something that is interesting to look at. I don't think it's a great painting, but it is an interesting painting.
I agree. Good, not great, but as far as movies like this go, I feel like they did put some fucking thought into it, which is refreshing.
Compared to like if you watch any other movie where you see an artist making like a masterpiece, it's like if you're gonna do that, you got to have a good looking piece of art, and usually they don't.
But also in the vein of the good not great thing, that actually comes into play, which indicates a higher level of attention to detail in what they were doing. Like they're setting up Johnny as a competent but not overwhelming sort of artist here, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's establishing sort of the turn that his art takes later in the movie. Yeah, which is also indicative of the station he finds himself sort of stuck in throughout the course of this movie, which I think dictates his actions to a certain extent. But later that evening, Zandalee and Terry are having a conversation, not necessarily an argument, but a semi-contentious discussion about Terry giving up his poetry to take over his father's business after his death. And Zandalee sort of calls him out, indicating that she thinks that he was looking for an excuse to stop writing because he didn't find, I guess, the level of success that he was looking for. So it was sort of a convenient out. It's not a I didn't make it, it's I had to stop type situation. And after this, sort of minor scuffle, Zandalee goes to church. I guess a Catholic church. It looked very Catholic. There's a confessional. Pews. It's a Catholic church.
Yeah, gotcha. That's the only you know this, Josh. It's the only branch of Christianity that has confession in a box like that, at least.
That I wasn't aware of. You mean you don't have to tell a stranger all the bad shit you did regularly, or else you'll go to hell?
Most other sects of Christianity do not do that.
Well, I don't think any other sects, to be perfectly honest. I don't. If there is another one, it's Episcopalians, and I'm very sure Episcopalians don't do it, because I think the two differences between Catholicism and Episcopalian is divorce and confession.
What about Lutherans?
Lutherans do not do confession. That was like one of the things.
I mean, if you're gonna cut something out, having to tell another human being the terrible shit that you do is probably a good first start. But this is also mildly interesting. I'm not sure if I call out the quote specifically, but close to this point in the film, a little bit later on, religion is called out explicitly. I think they're talking about Baptists and Catholics. Johnny is talking to a priest at a bar, and he says, why is it that the Baptists get to marry, but the Catholics get to drink?
It's Protestants.
It's Protestants.
Protestants specifically. I remember that line because he's next to a Catholic
he says,
priest.
Well, why do Protestants get the girls but not the booze, and Catholics get the booze but not the girls?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is just an old Catholic joke.
There you go. I mean, it's classic observational comedy. But we jump to the next day from the church scene, and Terry's at work, and it looks like his pop's business got bought out. So things aren't necessarily even going great at the profession that Terry traded down to. I guess based on his initial ambitions. Meanwhile, Zandalee is out with Jerry at the party that Jerry was picking out a dress for. It is some sort of strip club for sure. There's a bit of a racy act going on stage with a male and female stripper of some sort. Oddly enough, for this sort of scene, there's not the same amount of full frontal nudity that we get in the other portions of the film, which I think kind of undercuts whatever sort of tone or
I think Louisiana is a no full nudity state when it comes to strip clubs.
gotcha, but not their movies.
Yes, correct.
But either way, it looks like they were going for a certain vibe there. I'm not sure how much it comes across given the stage show, but it is still racy as fuck. It is an erotic thriller, so they're really leaning into that lane. Zandalee gets home.
They're just copy and pasting tits everywhere in this movie so far.
Yeah, it's
Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V.
yeah, it's later on that evening, Zandalee gets home from this soiree a bit drunk and amorous, and starts to try and get busy with Terry, but Terry calls a timeout on it. And this is where we get the sense that Terry is sort of preoccupied with work and life circumstance and is neglecting the romantic and physical intimacy portions of his relationship with Zandalee, and it's starting to become a problem. This is also the first scene where I noticed that the accents, particularly on the part of Zandalee, are out of whack. It goes from appearing to be like French or foreign to Louisiana Southern.
But
And
that's with her, right?
yes.
Yeah, I noticed that too, because Judge Reinhold, God bless him, kept that accent up the whole time.
Oh,
And
100%.
And didn't put it on too heavy to us to think about it. Like, it's kind of light enough to me that it's like believable, and that he probably was just like, okay, I'm a character now.
Yeah, no, and he does it masterfully between. So Terry Reinhold's character in all of this sort of has a poetic way of speaking as part of his as part of the foundation of his character. So like he'll switch into verse or old sayings or like a more theatrical delivery of lines, and cuts between that and regular talking, and the accent stays intact. It's really phenomenal. The actress playing Zandalee, not so much. It cuts back and forth with some level of jarring effect, at least in my opinion. So after this, it's morning again. Another day has passed, and so you better believe Zandalee is running. Has to happen. But during this particular run, we get a great bit of Buscemi's recurring comedic relief character, because in this, as she's running, he runs by her with like a stereo on his shoulder, like an old style boombox, and offers to sell it to her while cops are actively chasing him on Vespas, weirdly enough. But he dashes by her, and the cops catch up with him. He drops the stereo, it shatters to pieces, and they sort of corral him. But sure enough, Johnny is on the street randomly and comments to Zandalee how funny this is. Also,
I don't know about you guys, but I'm down with OPP, man.
Yeah, you know me, man. But I do want to call out, Cage is wearing some fucking fantastic glasses in this scene. Sunglasses, I think. I'm not entirely sure. It was the frames that really caught my attention. Amazing. But Zandalee comments on, I think it's a tattoo on him. He refers to it as the Rose of Fate.
Yeah, it's either a tattoo or something he just drew on himself.
Which I'm guessing with his personality, he just drew it on himself.
Well, I wasn't sure if it was a tattoo or if he drew it on himself, because he offers to draw it on Zandalee, who declines.
That's what I think.
Specifically why I thought it might have just been him fucking around drawing.
Yeah, I think he drew it on himself, and he also has the vibe of the weird kid in the back of English class when you were in high school, like drawing AK-47s into his notebook.
Yeah. This is a little less threatening than that. I'm
just saying it's a general vibe. It's a general vibe.
Because I was gonna say, he said to her, he's like, "You want me to draw it on you? Not don't come to school tomorrow." So a little bit of a different vibe there.
So you did mention the glasses. I do actually want to shout out Dina Appel, the costume designer for this movie, because all of the costuming is excellent. Like it seems like kind of greasy and like sweaty because of New Orleans, and they all are dressed like they're trying to be colder than they possibly can in that kind of heat. And I think it's just phenomenal work in that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, those frames jumped out. This is a 91 film. Like those, I'm fairly certain those exact same frames were used for like the most recent Iron Man super tech glasses from the Spider-Man movies. Like that's what I'm talking about. And this is a film 2 fucking decades ago. So pretty swank.
3 decades ago.
God, stop making me place myself in the timeline. I hate that.
Time marches on. We are all gonna die.
Time is a motherfucker.
I cannot wait for death's sweet, sweet embrace.
Yeah, no, I mean it creeps closer every day. But we jump from this scene to the next day or some point in time where Johnny has finished his portrait of Terry. And again, it's in the finished product is in similar vein to the snapshot that we got of it earlier. It's pretty good, not great. It's certainly interesting. I wouldn't categorize it as bad, but Zandalee finally offers her opinion on this when, asked for her opinion earlier in the film. She refuses to give it, and Terry, tells Johnny, don't take it personally. She refuses to criticize anything before it's done. And she gives it a little bit of a hard review, but this is the first point in the film where Johnny kisses Zandalee, and she's not super receptive of it, but she's also not reacting in a way that sends a clear message that it's not okay. It feels gross to describe it that way, but
I mean, it's gross when it happens. I think that's like the point of it. This isn't a sexy movie. This is a movie about desire and all of the nasty shit that goes on around that emotion.
I agree 100%, but like I do feel in general in both romantic comedies and certainly in this erotic thriller, consent is a concept that is not well explored or given due course, right?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Like we get the undertones and subtext of it, but it's played as less assaulty than it is in each of these scenarios, and this is the first one. This is the first glimpse we get of it.
So here's the only thing I'm going to disagree with the whole like consent thing. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, obviously, number one, like consent's important. Fucking deal with it, people. But it's not like as the movie goes on, like Nic Cage's character is like this hopeless romantic who is like, Jason Biggs in American Pie.
No, he's just he's a greasy guy.
He's a scumbag, and he is a scumbag the entire movie.
Yeah.
Why would he ask for consent? So I don't really have a problem with what they are doing to explore consent in this, because he's a dickhead. And like
from a character building standpoint, from a narrative utility standpoint, I do agree with that consent, exploring it in a healthy way, is not what this movie is about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm not saying like, they should have considered this when writing the character and so on and so forth. What I'm saying is they blur the line in an extreme way throughout multiple parts of this film. This is just the first scene in which we get a sort of taste of it. And again, the acting is done very well. Zandalee has a base level revulsion that comes across remarkably well in every scene prior to this. And it plays into sort of the, love-hate dichotomy that is well explored in this film. It's just, when I was writing out the notes to describe the scene verbally, when I said, when I described it, I was like, it feels gross to describe it that way, where it seemed like she did not want this, but she did not fight against it to a certain extent. So I'm trying to explain the subtext that's happening on screen, but in a way that makes me feel like I'm whitewashing it or condoning it, which I just want to be clear is not. It's a complicated scene as far as how it's displayed. So
Josh, don't worry, you're a good little boy. Your leftist card is still intact.
no,
You're fine.
It's not a matter of that. It's just it's complicated to translate this scene into, just descriptive verbiage.
Which fair. I would probably stumble with it myself.
But I think honestly, I think the deeper dissection there does kind of get across what happens on the screen, this sort of indefinable quality of seeing two people act this out. So the the very next scene, and I think it's going to be an appropriate cliffhanger for this episode, is it's a new day. So Zandalee is running. No, I'm sorry. She's not running. She's walking in the streets because it's raining. It's raining, so she's not running. She has an umbrella, and a homeless person or somebody like harasses her and takes her umbrella away. And Cage, Johnny, is sort of like spying on her from across the street and sees this happen. And he confronts her in the rain and sort of corners her. And she tells him to go away. And we get an insane line from Nic Cage where he says, and I quote, "I want to shake you naked and eat you alive."
Not the strangest line he will say in this movie.
No, not at all.
Very strange. I don't know what shaking. Is shake you naked an expression? Was an expression in the 90s? Is it a regional thing? I've never heard it.
Are we describing shaking somebody so hard their clothes fly off, or shaking them while they're naked? And which scenario is more conducive to following it up with eating them alive? These are my questions. But yeah, I did have to call it out because some of the lines in this film are bonkers. This is one of them. I will say this: the one thing that stood out to me throughout the entire course of this erotic thriller was none of the dirty talk holds a candle to the depravity of the dirty talk in Moonstruck.
Yes,
that shit
you're correct.
Got so fucking dark and nasty. Even an erotic thriller can't compare, which gave me a good laugh.
No, Moonstruck is a fucking masterpiece.
It's yeah. It rides the line between cinematic genius and absolute baseline horny posting.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're going to get a movie to dethrone Moonstruck at number one. Hate to say it.
On the horny posting ranking?
No, not on the horny posting ranking. On the overall, how good is this movie ranking?
We're gonna have some competitors.
There's at least 3 I can think of that are better than Moonstruck, at least in my opinion, that I will go to bat for when we get to it.
There's some competitors. I'm talking about a ranking that we have not gone over, which is horny posting, which we might have to throw on there.
Oh God! All right, you know what? I'm adding it to the list now because I'm expecting the next podcast with the next after part 2 of this to just be an absolute bloodbath. I was thinking about this on my drive home from work today.
Oh yeah, the ranking episode is going to be a kumite.
And I was thinking that like. I feel like for like the best movies, the top 3 and the bottom 5 are kind of locked in place, but those middle like 14,
it's the killing ground.
Yeah, this is going to be the fucking killing fields of Cambodia.
Yeah,
and I'm Pol Pot, motherfucker.
It's going to get nasty. It's going to get contentious. I'm excited for it, and also like between doing notes and stuff like that, in the back of my head is like, you need to start training. you need a montage. You got to get your talking points together, man, because this is gonna get fucking brutal. But yeah, let's end on "I want to shake you naked and eat you alive." As I said at the top of the episode, we keep it sexy here. That's a sexy way to end it. In the meantime, follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at cagefight_pod, where we post at the pleasure of our overlord Elon Musk. So who knows how long we'll be around. Get your follows in while you can get them, folks.
I don't know. I mean, I did vote under the Nic Cage fight Twitter account that he should leave Twitter. So if he leaves Twitter, cool. If he finds out every account that voted for that and bans them, I'm okay with that. I've already signed up for Mastodon.
Dude, if he does that, it's absolutely going to be exactly how I approach every workplace survey I've ever filled out.
I mean, if we all get booted, I'm just going to fucking Letterboxd. Honestly, it's a social media site built just for me that I haven't used at all.
And we're way behind. We need to be posting summaries of every movie we've covered so far. And
yeah, we need a Letterboxd, so we need we need a Mastodon.
Yeah, I intended to start that, and then I got busy with my day job, which is a bummer, but we'll have to collaborate on the text of that and just cover everything we've hit so far.
I'm about that life. We also have a Patreon, which I already mentioned, patreon.com/Nic Cage Fight. We have a bunch of different tiers, but the $3 tier, you get all of these episodes without ads. I put them up the same day as I put up, the one with ads, so you don't have to wait any longer.
Don't have to get recruited to ICE.
Yeah, you don't have to get recruited to ICE, which I pay $3 a month not to be recruited to ICE, to be perfectly honest with you.
Money well spent.
Yep.
And then, we have, other tiers too that do other things. It's all written there. If you can read, you can figure it out. So I guess be literate, or try to be literate. Have somebody read it to you. A friend, perhaps us. Maybe that should be a Patreon tier.
But that doesn't work. One of our Patreon ad pivots is just going to have to be reading out all the tiers because we don't want to exclude illiterate people from it.
Yeah, I guess it is
going to be kind of tough.
Oh God, I can already hear it.
But...
I can already hear the
Subscribe
voice
to
of
Patreon.
1,000.
I'll teach you how to read.
I can already hear the voice of 1,000 liberals calling me an ableist.
Yeah, no, we'll help as much. Call us on the phone. Next episode, I'll give out Rich's home phone number.
I mean, that's actually fine. My phone is on Do Not Disturb constantly. So, you can just call and leave me a voicemail and yell at me. It's okay. Also, give us 5 stars on whatever you're listening on. Do it right now. I'll tell you again at the beginning of the next episode. Just, go do it.
It does help. It does help. All right, that's going to do it for now. Join us next time for part 2 of Zandalee, the deeply erotic thriller. And as always, listener, we appreciate you.